All right, everyone. Welcome to the April 2021 meeting of the Grand Strand Astronomers, your astronomy club in the Myrtle Beach and Greater Grand Strand area. This is another virtual meeting. We're still on the virtual meeting schedule. My name is Ian Hewitt. I'm the president of the co-chair, or the chair rather, of the Grand Strand Astronomers, and I'd like to welcome everybody who's either here, live, or I guess electronically live, or I guess online. And then all of you that are watching on the stream, the YouTube stream. So, welcome. We have a great presentation tonight. We have Marty McGuire, who's a solar system ambassador. In fact, I'll probably, rather than introduce him, Marty, why don't you introduce yourself, and you
Sure.
can do a much better job than I can. So,
Well, there's not much. I'm a marketing guy by day and an amateur astronomer by night. And just I've loved aeronautics and space since I was a kid. Much like a lot of us, really hooked into astronomy with a first small telescope. And what did I point at? Happened to be Saturn. You see some rings on there, and how you just hooked. If you've seen, obviously you've probably all seen Saturn's rings, but that was the object in the night sky. I thought it was a star I was going to be pointing at, and it happened to be rings, even though it was lo-fi quality on a cheap telescope. But that hooked me from there. So, like Denise, I'm a solar system ambassador. We're volunteers, and I've been doing a lot of online this past year and a half. Anxious to get back. I usually do several talks a year at some public libraries and schools in our neck of the woods in eastern Pennsylvania. And I'm also online as a backyard astronomy guy on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and those are the main channels. But I've got YouTube and stuff too. So I really just this all started for me because of when I really got this sucker, my 10-inch Dobsonian. Back in about 2012, I figured, hey, might as well just make a Facebook page and share some of the things I see through this and get some pictures of, and it just kind of went from there. So I'm not I don't have a blue check mark next to my name or anything on social media, nothing like that. But it's just the culmination of sharing what I enjoy seeing in the night sky, and one of the most challenging things I've tried to capture is the space station. That's been a real fun pursuit of mine, and the focus of my talk tonight, and showing how I do that and what I've learned, my learning process, especially with a fully manual telescope. It's not easy when you're really zoomed into an object like the space station. How do you keep it centered and track it throughout the sky? I've had more failures than successes, but the couple successes I've had have gotten some relatively decent, okay photos. You can actually make out stuff on the space station. So yeah, that's what we'll be chatting about tonight. And I love the night sky like all of you. So thank you for having me. So do you have anything else that you'd like to see before I get into my little talk? Or
no, I'll make a few comments later. The short business stuff afterwards. Let's go on with the real entertainment while everybody's really
okay.
here, which is you.
Great. So I've got a couple things I'd like to show you. Some of the equipment I use and some of the lenses I've got, and how I use what equipment I've got, and how I connect it all together to make this happen. And then I'd also like to screen share a couple things. I've got my laptop set up here separately, so I can show you a couple of my best photos of the space station, and what exposures I'm using and shutter speeds, and how I make that happen. There's a lot of people online, or maybe not a lot of people, who love trying to capture the space station through their telescope. Some have automated rigs that do it, and some are fully manual. There's a bunch out there. If you search for space station guys on Instagram and Twitter, they've got a bunch of stuff. Some of mine have been featured there, but space station guys, they feature a lot of others, and it's really a technical challenge to get the space station. You got to wait for the right pass when it's pretty much overhead, and then the brightest, and technically the closest to us when it's right overhead from your location, and versus a lower on the horizon pass where you got to see through the murky sky and you're dealing with less ideal conditions. So not every pass is a good one for going out there, but usually I wait to try to attempt some photos when it's going pretty much overhead, and we've got a nice 5-6 minute pass from horizon to horizon. So what I've done is I've added on a couple things to my Dob. I originally just started off with a little red dot easy finder. Some of these, what I'll try to do here is bring this in. If you can see that, you can see my Lego space station back over there. So I've got the, just the red dot easy finder on here. That is not so accurate, but it gets me in the general direction of the space station. I just recently got this 90-degree right angle. It's a, it's a 9 by 50 millimeter with illuminated reticle inside. That helps me keep the space station much more centered in view. And then of course, I've got my remove before flight, on here, but so I use my, for my camera system, I use a Canon 60D is mine. Got to pop the lens off. And I've got a couple lens combinations I use to connect it to my telescope. First, I've got this Orion variable universal camera adapter. So it's hollow. And what I do is try not to drop my new lens I just bought. I actually insert, I've got a Plössl lens. It's a 20 millimeter Plössl 1.25 inch diameter Plössl lens. And I insert it into the barrel. So this is what afocal astrophotography, I think it's called. It's using the lenses. So it kind of rests inside. I can screw it down so it locks it in place. And then I can attach this. I've got a Canon T-ring onto the end of this, and I can just screw this right onto, clicks right onto the camera. So this is what I connect right into the scope as my eyepiece. I have tried to, let me back the camera back up a little. I've actually tried to take photos of the space station while looking through the viewfinder on here, while I've also got a 2x Barlow on this thing, and that's impossible. If you're trying to manually find something with a Barlow and one of your lenses attached to a telescope, it's like trying to find a star in the sky without using a finder scope. I mean, it's hard to get it centered, let alone track the space station. So I've given up on trying to track the space station through the finder, and that's why I got this this right angle finder scope. So I have a bit zoomed out view, and it's easier to keep relatively centered. Out of my most recent picture I got of this space station, I took about 200 exposures. I think I got 4 usable ones. A lot of misses because I'm trying to track this manually. And, when it gets right overhead, let me put the camera down, especially for a pass going straight overhead, I'm looking at it from the horizon, I'm coming up, but then I've got to pivot and then keep tracking down the other way. And inevitably, the best picture I'm ever going to get is directly straight up because it's the least amount of atmosphere and it's the brightest it usually gets for the passes. But I'm usually out there swearing on the deck because I'm trying to move this beast around and keep it centered in all these angles while I'm trying to keep it tracking and take photos. So I do have a corded shutter release that I keep in one hand while I'm basically holding on here, so I can just push the trigger button and keep pointing and do a couple things at once. So it's a pretty big challenge, and actually when I can get 1 or 2 out of 200 photos from a pass, I'm pretty happy because I'm just looking for the one where I can make out more detail than I did the last time on the space station. Shutter speeds and ISO settings are also really important. I've played around with that a lot over the years. I've been trying to get pictures of the space station pretty consistently since I first figured out I could do it, I think in 2014 or 15, when it was just kind of a blur. And I saw a little bit of the copper coloring of the solar panels, one of my photos. And then I started thinking, okay, well, I want to get zoomed in more. I'm going to add a Barlow and I'm going to try to use a better lens to get a clearer view. And then the difficulty just increases the more magnification you want. But I wasn't happy with just a blob. And yeah, I can make out solar panels. Hey, that's pretty cool. You can see something it's 230 miles away if it's straight up overhead, and say, I saw the space station. And were they waving down at me at the same time? I don't know. But I always dream and hope that. So the ISO settings for this, if it's a bright pass, I've been really keeping the ISO managed because I shoot in RAW format, so I can really work in Photoshop later to bring out the colors and contrast. RAW format gives you that extra control over your image. Again, I've just got a regular camera. I don't have any astrophotography cameras or anything to set up here that you might have. What kind of cameras do you have for your scopes? What do you use?
I use an old T1i.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think I've got a T5i, and then I got like an ASI 224, and then a ASI 120.
Okay. So you've got some dedicated astro cameras then too.
Yeah, I don't have any of the big iron like the 1600s or 2600s or 07 ones. I don't have any of those big ones, but yeah, mostly DSLR and
Yeah, I don't want to take out a car payment kind of size payment for a telescope, and that's the next step up for me. I'm trying to keep in this range of equipment I have and stuff. So, but with the camera settings, I'm shooting RAW format, so I can really control the editing later and bring out the colors. But I've stayed in about ISO 800 level and trying to shoot at shutter speeds of 1/1000th of a second or higher. On a bright pass, I'm finding that's even still not enough. I need to increase my shutter speed even further to get rid of the shake and wobble, because I'm manually just tracking and making this kind of abrupt corrections as I'm trying to track it. So it's not perfect, and the ideal shot happens to be when I'm moving it just smoothly and keeping it centered, but it sticks sometimes. And I'm getting a lot of blurry shots out of the 200 pictures I take. 4 end up being usable and one's my favorite. So shutter speeds of over faster than 1/1000th of a second, and ISO not higher than 800. And I've played around with ISO 640 and lower because I'm trying to get rid of the noise from the high ISOs. It might be good for capturing a lot of light, but not in this particular setup I've found. So
you find using the lower ISO works better? Is it strictly noise as opposed to like dynamic range, or?
I don't have a great technical answer for that. I've just been playing around. I'm an amateur at photography, so just playing around with those couple things. I find that I'm trying to remove the grain from the photo and the noise. I can't control the aperture because I've taken my a Canon lens off, so I can't control that. So I'm just really shooting in full manual mode in a high speed, the high speed setting. So I had to get a faster SD card so I could basically hold the trigger button down, and even then it starts to fill up and it pauses in between a couple photos. So the buffering after a while, I'm trying to continuously shoot in RAW format. Each file that I have is maybe 25 to 30 megabytes a piece. So it's struggling to keep up in fast shooting mode even. And I'm usually getting frustrated because I've clicked the button way too fast for too long. And then the ideal shot comes and it's the camera's thinking still, trying to process what I've already taken. So I did get a faster SD card, the Type 2 or whatever the SD types are. I invested a little more to get a faster card that could read write quicker. So it's a combination of a bunch of things that I've just been learning on, trying to get this silly thing to work and get better pictures of the space station. But I was pretty much, I don't know if I have succeeded until after I'm done taking photos, because I don't have time. I don't want to waste the time during an ISS pass to look at the screen and see if I got a good one, because usually I've got to zoom in. I've got to crop the photos quite a bunch after, even using a 2x Barlow or 2x Barlow, etc. Because I'm having to crop in Photoshop and really isolate the space station. So I don't have time to pause throughout, even though I want to see if I've got focus right. That focus is another thing I'll bring up in a minute. So I don't know till after I'm done and I'm going through the photos on my camera and say, oh, I got something that looks bright, and whoa, one happened to be actually kind of clear. And I can clean that up in Photoshop to get it better looking. So it's, yeah, I've got 5 minutes to do it and get it right, or else I miss again. So it's just it's a fun thing. It's a challenge I've given myself, and I don't go out every time a space station pass comes over. I kind of wait till the ideal ones pop up. So I think another fun part of this, the last pass that I had, I'll find the date in a second. It was only a couple weeks ago, I think. But the focusing, I don't have. I did upgrade my focuser on here as well. It's a dual speed Crayford focuser with a nice lock on it, which really helps. I had a single speed with a really loose lock before it. It's a gear drive this time. So it's very smooth, and the fine motor control on it really helps me better. But I'm not focusing during the shooting session when I'm looking at the space station, because remember, I'm looking through my viewfinder here. So I pre-focus. If the moon's out, I focus on the moon. Space station's 250 miles away usually. Moon's a lot further. So, but I found that if I can focus on the moon, the space station is usually pretty clear in the photos if I'm successful. But there wasn't a moon out when the space station came out the last time. So I'm struggling just after sunset to figure out what's the first star I can see to start focusing on before the pass came over. So it wasn't too long after sunset that this particular space station pass came. But luckily, Sirius popped out after sunset and gave me something to focus on. But with the atmospheric disturbance, it wasn't a very clear shot of Sirius to get my focusing on. But so I did the best I could. And I usually spend probably 15, 20 minutes practicing the focusing and locking it in at what I think visually looks best. And I'm using the LCD viewfinder on my Canon to do that, and hope for the best, and hope that I've got the zoom focusing just right. Otherwise, and then try not to bump the focuser, even if I've got it locked, because then it'll be really fuzzy during. So it's all these combinations of things: the setup, making sure I've got the scope out long enough to cool down because I have it inside. Getting the focusing right. Getting the camera settings all set up, and then using the app on my phone to figure out when the ISS starts to come up over the horizon. So, you probably all know of spotthestation.nasa.gov, where you can get text alerts when the station's coming over your area. But I also use an iPhone app called ISS Above with a little more detail, so I can figure out the heading, on the compass, where I need to look for it to come up over the horizon. Usually it's visible for me 15, 20 degrees above the horizon because of the light pollution up here. And this was close after sunset. But it's a combination of these things that, get me aimed in the right direction and hope for the best. And get some good chances at capturing them. So what I'd like to do is show you a couple, connect on my laptop here and share my other screen, if that's okay.
Should be able to do it. I made both of you co-hosts.
Okay. Share. All right, so I want to start and show you my last picture here. This is I just shared it full screen. Oh, maybe I didn't share the correct window. So let me stop share. I realize if I can share. If I just share desktop, I think it'll work that way. Okay, are you seeing that? Yeah, you should probably see it on my phone now. So this is my one of my clearest photos. Well, clearest is a dangerous word here because it's not exactly clear, but I was excited because what I found for the first time, this is before up here, and I've used reference images from NASA's website for the space station to figure out what's docked where, because they have quite a few ships docked at the moment. And this photo, I'm just trying to get the date off of here. This was April 15. This is the day before. This is Crew Dragon 2, parked right here, the SpaceX Crew Dragon. They moved it the next day to make room for the next one that's launching tomorrow morning, right? So they moved it, almost about a week ago now, or a little over a week. And we've got, I believe, this is the Japanese module over here. We've got Columbus, yes, from ESA here. And see the little squiggly line right here? Is that, if I zoom in a little more, is that any better? Is it a little kind of bendy line right there? That's Canadarm. So I confirmed it with a couple people online that I can actually spot the arm that helps grab spacecraft. I thought that was pretty cool. That was one of the smallest details that I've been able to kind of bring out. Down here, if you can see my mouse pointer a little bit, we've got the cooling radiator panels on either side. And down towards the bottom right side of the picture, this is where the Soyuz was docked at the time, still is. Now we're looking directly up at the bottom of the space station here as it's looking down. So the cupola window that they used to look down is somewhere up in this neighborhood to the top left of the long beam that connects the solar panels. But I was pretty excited because this is one of the better photos with some interesting details that I've been able to extract from here. Let me go to a couple others. Because what I've done, for example, like this is used a reference image that was on NASA's website at the time that is the bottom half of the photo that identified what's docked and where. And I used that to kind of map it out to my picture and see what's where. So I made a little grid. So this was June 1st of 2020, just after Crew Dragon Demo 2 docked at the space station, the Endeavour capsule. And I was able to identify where that was. I think that was only a couple days after it had launched. Does anybody remember the date that Crew Dragon Demo 2 launched? Was it in late May? I don't recall, but it was recently.
Something
was
like that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it might have been Memorial Day week. Was it Memorial Day weekend? Or
you're right.
Yeah, right about then.
So there's a couple of us online that got the first pictures of Crew Dragon parked, which is kind of fun. Hey, you could spot spaceships up there. And have fun with that. It's a little badge of honor to be able to say I've seen that docked up there. So I've started using these reference images to kind of help people see, what I see on the station. Some of my earlier ones, this is where this is an earlier version from 2015. Not a lot to look at, not very pleasing to the eye, but I was learning. I had ISO set to 2500 and only a 1/320th of a second. So not fast enough and too much ISO. So the photo really got kind of too bright and blurred out a lot. So I started getting better from there. Trying to improve my technique, trying to get some that, I can actually see solar panels on, and just progressing. This is from 2019, quite a big improvement from the previous ones. You can actually see some of the ripples on the radiator panels. So again, just aspiring, but it's still a little fuzzy. And I'd need a Hubble in my backyard to start making larger improvements. But still, it's a fun challenge. This is from May of 2019, another attempt. I just showed you this one from, that was with Dragon docked, and I had it on the reference image. This is from July of 2020. Another one, this was only 1/500th of a second, an ISO 640. But again, SpaceX was still docked there and Progress was on the other end. So this was clear in a bunch of ways because you could see individual modules kind of more clearly, or at least the outlines of them and some shadows. So it's kind of a fun progress trying to nail this thing up in the night sky and having fun with it. So I'll stop sharing there. Any questions about how I've been doing that? Hopefully, I don't know if there's any insights you learned or anybody else tried to spot it as well, and any challenges you have.
Well, I've always tried to look at it visually, but I've never really took the plunge on trying to capture it with the camera. So I noticed you were saying the 1/500th speed was, was clear. What would be, I guess the ideal speed would be the max you could get, but is there like a,
there's a trade-off.
You have like that you find works the best, or
the last one is if you've got a bright pass, and it all depends on the brightness of the pass, because depending on if it's horizon to horizon that you're going to have a view and it's pretty much overhead, I have found that 1/1000th of a second or higher is where I'm going to try to be with a lower ISO, like ISO 640. And then for what I've got to do from there is often in the viewfinder of the LCD viewfinder after I'm done, it still looks quite dim even from there, but I'm really trying to capture and freeze that movement that I'm doing manually with the scope. So I've got to crop it and really work with the exposure settings, remove some of the noise to make it pop out better. So that's the challenge. Is it's what you see is it's just like your long exposure photography of a deep sky object. You have to get lots of data to get the colors to pop out. So I'm trying to do the best I can with a single exposure, and I found the higher the speed you can go, and it may look dark on the viewfinder after you take it, but then when you process it, you're going to try to get the colors to pop out and get some definition. And take that noise down a little bit with. I use Photoshop, so I find that works for me. But I know there's tons of tools out there that may do it different ways. So there will be more failures attempting to capture the space station than successes. That can be off-putting to some, but I have found it. It's a good challenge for myself to keep trying to get a better quality picture. And so that's how I do that.
So I noticed, I'm sorry, I'll let someone else ask a question.
Yeah, I was going to say I've never thought about shooting the space station because it's moving so fast through the sky. When you're sitting there looking at it, it's moving on pretty good.
Right.
So I guess you're doing all this manually. So you're physically moving your scope while you're trying to take that picture. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So I'm looking through the right angle finder scope. I've got the camera connected here. Let's try to simulate this real quick. I've got that connected and tightened in. What I don't have with me right now is I've got the shutter cable. So that's a loose cable, and I've got that in my left hand. And I'm usually have my left hand up here. I've got my right hand down on the back of the scope, looking into the right angle viewfinder, trying not to bump the camera so I don't mess up the focus, all at the same time, and keep it centered while I'm going straight overhead. When it's directly overhead, that's the worst, most frustrating point when I usually lose it in the viewfinder because I've got to get it up to here, pivot, and keep it going back down the other way. So usually the overhead passes make me swear the most. When they're a little off, I don't have to go straight up and turn all the way around. I can kind of just keep it at an angle and keep tracking better. But
Would you try that with another type of scope?
Yeah, certainly. This is the only one I have, so this is what I've got. But I would think that other kind of scopes, other exposure settings Now, again, I've got a 10-inch Dobsonian, so my exposure settings I use through here are going to be different from something with a smaller aperture and different kinds of setups. But it takes some practice to try a couple things and figure out what's right for your scope. If it's smaller aperture, you're probably going to have to bump up the ISO a little bit more than I have. I'm capturing a lot more light, but I'd still try to keep the shutter speeds high. It's managing maybe the ISO and try and keep shutter speeds at least over 1/500th of a second or higher, but it'll depend on the results you get too.
Yeah, mine's a 5-inch Schmidt Cassegrain. So, I mean, I could theoretically do it probably, but
Yeah.
It,
And you know, when I've looked through before, when I've just not had my camera set up, just looking through the lenses and I see the station going over, it's really bright in the eyepiece. And I don't see the definition I do in the camera after I'm processing. So I don't see, I've never seen with my own eye what I showed you on my pictures. That's too bad. I wish I could. I wish I could make out the panels and other things. It's just a bright blob out there. And I'm really capturing that with a high shutter rate and a lower, to get that. It's such a bright object that we've got to kind of really freeze it to be able to see detail on it later. But I don't think I could see it. I don't even know if I could use, a moon filter to make it less bright and actually see some detail visually or not. I've never tried that. So we've got some other cool things coming up in the night sky for May, some fun ones. And then, we've got also the annular solar eclipse on June 10, which pretty much goes right through your neck of the woods in terms of the best view right after sunrise. So there's a lot of good conjunctions in May with Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars. Conjunction of the moon and Saturn on May 3rd, conjunction of the moon and Jupiter on May 4, basically 4 degrees apart. So pretty much in one good view. And conjunction of the moon and Mars on May 16, conjunction of the moon and Saturn again on May 30. So there's a bunch of things that are fun to look out for. And when I'm talking, I'm going to start. I had a little hiatus for a while with my local news station to do what's up in the night sky for the coming month. We're going to start that up again. And I think they might actually put me on TV this time. I'm kind of excited. I've been on the web and other stuff, but they might actually show me on the TV segment this time, talking about what's up for the coming month. So there's some fun things to talk about. And of course, tomorrow SpaceX is launching 4 more astronauts up to the space station, weather permitting. And I know you were, and you're going to wake up and make sure you get pictures for all of us so we can sleep in comfortably. Thank you. The annular solar eclipse, I looked up the map for that. Let me just share that quick too, because that was, I'll bring that up here. We've got a greatamericaneclipse.com has some good maps and stuff I found. I like how they present everything. But just after sunrise on June 10, I don't know what day of the week that is, we'll have some pretty good partial eclipses throughout the region on that day. Canadians are going to be far luckier up in northwestern Ontario, I think. But it's going to be something fun to look forward to, weather permitting. But it's going to be at sunrise. So for you, you're right on the. You're lucky. You have an unobstructed view of the sunrise. So hopefully that's going to be quite a sight for you. I'm looking forward to seeing East Coasters on the beach getting cool photos of it rising up over the Atlantic. I have to wait a little bit until it rises up over a local hillside. But that's something else. So May and June have some pretty cool things to look forward to. I like the conjunctions. That's especially when you're trying to share stuff with people locally who don't have telescopes or other stuff in terms of outreach. They may have a pair of binoculars. and a conjunction is an easy thing for everybody to enjoy and say, hey, that's not a star, that's Saturn, or that's Mars or Jupiter right next to the moon. It's hard to let them know often where, you know, it's a good reference point. Say that's right next to the moon. That's a planet. It's not a star. And that is the eye opener for a lot of folks, I think, what I find. And then I tell them, you know, use the free astronomy apps to just hold up to the night sky and, you know, find out what you're looking at. You may be surprised on what you can see, or usually that, hey, that's a planet, not a star. Did you know you could see planets? A lot of people don't know that they can. I'm sure you found that out in your experiences as well when you're doing outreach or talking with folks. So it'll be a fun month. Anybody catch the meteor showers last night? I slept and it was cloudy anyway, so I didn't have an excuse. I could sleep. It wasn't a problem. Anybody see them?
No, I didn't really see anything. So
The Lyrids? I don't know if they were a good show this year or not. And the next meteor shower is what? The Eta Aquarids on May 4 and 5. So they're active from mid-April to the end of May, but they peak overnight May 4 to 5. And I forget where those rank in terms of overall meteor shower performance. What's the best meteor shower of the year? I forget. Do you recall?
well, sometimes the Perseids are really good, and then sometimes the Geminids. I guess the Geminids are a little more reliable, especially because it's December. So
Okay. Yep.
I think last year though we didn't get a lot of bright ones. I think I caught one good one. I can't remember if it's Perseids or Geminis. I caught one good one out of like
Okay.
like 1,000, 1,200 frames, right?
I'm giving up trying to photograph meteor showers. I'm just going to sit out on a cot, look straight up at the sky, and enjoy it. Because every time I try to point my camera in one direction, a bright one goes that way. So even with a wide angle lens,
I use a fairly wide lens, and I just set it up in a clear spot of sky. Just pick a clear spot of sky, and I just set it up, and then I'll let it run for like 4 hours, just cycling through pictures, like 30-second exposures. And then I just search through them afterwards, and sometimes you get lucky.
Yeah, then it takes a month to look through all the photos afterwards.
So you can just kind of, it's actually pretty quick when you start thumbing through them, because you're just looking for differences, right?
Yeah.
And it turns out that that's the only way I found it that is pretty successful. Like,
Okay.
you can't anticipate, and every once in a while you get a nice bright one.
Yeah. Well, that sums up. I took more than my time, I think, but that is what I wanted to share with you tonight, and hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you can share and maybe go for an attempt trying to get the space station. I'd love to hear if you attempt it and how it works. We can share tips. Maybe you find something that works even better. I'd love to hear, because then I don't have to. We could all help each other get better pictures.
I wanted to ask you about your adapter. You're using that, like, what is the afocal projection?
Where did I put it? Oh, it's on on here. Yeah.
I can't help you with that, but I kind of wanted to ask you about that. I've seen those. Sure. So basically, you use the eyepiece instead of a lens. But the thing is, do you have problems? I mean, is it pretty easy to get it focused and centered, or do you have like image plane problems with that? I mean,
are you talking about this adapter that I use to connect my Canon to the telescope? So yeah, the variable piece of this, which is nice because it involves a little bit of zoom as well. So the lens goes in, kind of goes down to the barrel, and then there's the one locking piece down here. It just tightens into the side of the lens. These two other ones can actually extend. Well, it's stuck. I can actually extend the length of the barrel. You can see how it's moving here.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually increases, gives me more effective zoom as well. So whenever I adjust these, I do have to also adjust on my scope. I can bring out the how far out. I continually have to adjust the zoom on the scope as well, because this hops out as well. So it's a combination of each of these things to get kind of maximum zoom given the lenses I have in here. And then I'm having to refocus. Now there is a range, a permissible range of focus that works with. There's bounds that I can't go under or past that's usable. So I've kind of found a sweet spot of trying to extend this tube as much as I can. And again, this is a Orion variable universal camera adapter. And it works, would work more than with just and I had to get a Canon T-ring for me, but they've got these, they just screw on and it's just a T-ring adapter. So it's what works for me. But it does involve a lot of playing around with the focus because anytime I change the length of this, I've got to readjust how far the piece in here travels from the telescope as well to get the right focus. So it can be frustrating trying to get it right. And I've just kind of, by looking at online and talking to Orion telescopes for their tech support, trying to figure out what would work for me for what I'm trying to accomplish. Dobsonians aren't really ideal for photography, but I've made it work with what I kind of trial and error.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So hopefully you'll learn something. Hopefully it was interesting. And I'd love to know if any of you try to attempt the space station photos and what you learned from it, or share a picture with me. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So we really appreciate, Marty, really appreciate you spending the time to come talk to us this month.
Sure.
And give us maybe something to try and see if somebody will take a shot at the space station, so
that's after somebody wakes up tomorrow and gets a picture of SpaceX launching.
Yeah,
that's your mission first.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that works out. So it's going to depend on whether there's low level clouds.
Yeah.
You get that band of clouds, and we'll have to see how high it gets. Yeah, so we really appreciate you spending the time to talk to us.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Giving us something a little bit different in terms of experience. Like it's not something I don't actually know of any mounts that are capable of tracking that fast.
Yeah, you might have to unlock it and just do it freestyle.
Yeah, I think you have to do it freestyle. I don't know of any even any go-to mounts that slew fast enough.
Okay, well, that would certainly get it. If you find one, let me know, because that keep it centered for me much better than my method.
It would, but I don't know of any that move that fast, right? That operate in that regime, right? So I've never heard of any. So I'm sure you probably would know from being in the club of ISS photographers. So, but again, we really appreciate your time. You can either stay on or drop. It's up to you. So. We don't have much business.
I'll go ahead and drop off and enjoy the rest of your evening, and hear from you all soon.
Okay. Well, again, thank you so much, Marty. We really appreciate it.
Stay warm. I saw your Bethlehem, Allentown area, right? So
yes,
I know. Yeah, I know exactly where you're at. Stay warm for sure.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for coming.
Sure.
Yes, wonderful. You did a great job. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Really appreciate it.
Have a good night. Bye.
You too. So everybody, well, it's a great presentation by Marty. I see his computer still on. Oh, his computer. There goes his computer. So I know it's kind of a small crowd tonight, so I don't really have a lot of announcements other than we'll go ahead and start looking forward to the May meeting. If anybody gets a chance to go see the SpaceX, even if you don't want to take a picture, see if you can go out in the morning if you're up early. It launches at 5:49. I'll remind everybody that when you're launching to the space station, because of the high inclination of the orbit, it's an instantaneous launch window. What that means is that if they can't go at 5:49, you can't put a 3-minute hold or a 5-minute hold. If they can't go at 5:49, then they have to roll to the next window, which I think is on Monday. So, the one thing is it's either going to go at 5:49 and you'll be able to see it about a minute to 2 minutes later, or it's not going to go. So, that's the way it works. Right now, I think the weather looks okay. Again, we're going to continue to work on the website. I know the website still got the temporary page up. Continue working on that. So we're also going to start working on the Astronomical League stuff that opens up. The yearly enrollment opens up really in April. So I'll work with John and Gerald on that. And other than that, I really didn't have any announcements. Denise, John, Gerald, or does anybody have anything they want to say?
I don't have anything, no.
And if you guys have any buddy that you would like for, anybody that you'd like to present, just let us know too. We'll get other people scheduled as well. If you have some friends that you think would be a good presenter, we would love to have them. So thanks.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead. Thanks everybody who's been on the live stream. So I'm going to go ahead and end the live stream and appreciate everybody who's been on the live stream here. Let's see.